What truly transpired at Custer's final stand? Not from a commander's viewpoint, but from a warrior who was present, riding, combating, and enduring the blood-drenched terrain of the Little Bighorn. This is the narrative of Wooden Leg, a Cheyenne combatant who survived the experience. Wooden Leg, a Cheyenne brave, was involved in the 1876 Battle of the Little Bighorn. Initially named Kensito, he received his new name following a leg wound from a conflict with a wooden replacement. As a part of the Northern Cheyenne, he was a well-regarded fighter. He participated in several clashes with U.S. forces, including the engagement with Custer's 7th Cavalry at the Little Bighorn. After the fight, he withdrew to Canada with other braves, before finally coming back to reside on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Montana, where he died in 1940. Wooden Leg is recalled for sharing his memories of the Little Bighorn with historians, giving a vital Native American account of the engagement. His testimony has been maintained in books and archives, supplying a unique outlook on this pivotal historical event. Please recall to like and subscribe to assist our community in expanding. I was asleep when an abrupt sound startled me awake. Something within the noise frightened me. I sat upright, hearing intently. My brother Yellowhair also awakened. We both jumped to our feet. Bedlam had broken out across the camps. Distant rifle reports reverberated. We hurried from the woodland to gain a better view. The gunfire appeared to originate from the upper section of the encampment. Our people were dispersing, some running west toward the bluffs, others rushing down the stream. Women cried out, warriors yelled, and elders shouted alarms. Soldiers are upon us. Young men, protect us. We dashed to our lodge. Terror permeated the atmosphere. Women frantically collected possessions for flight. Some fled north or across the river empty-handed. Children looked for their mothers, while mothers called out anxiously for their children. I seized my rope and pistol, then sprinted to where our horses were tethered. I observed 3 young herders. One was catching insects. The other 2 were cooking fish over a tiny flame. I yelled a warning and inquired about the horses. Without speaking, they jumped onto their tied ponies and raced toward the village. Just then, Bald Eagle's voice shouted out, telling them to fetch the horses immediately. 2 additional boys were already driving them in. I was panting heavily. Sprinting was never my forte. I could hike for leagues, but dashing fatigued me rapidly. I walked back to our lodge. My father, marked by many scars, had already fetched my preferred horse from the approaching herd. I dumped out my war bag and made ready for combat. I ripped off my everyday garments and donned a fresh pair of leggings, a present from an Oglala Sioux. A good cloth shirt followed. I kicked off my worn moccasins and pulled on beaded ones. My father threw a blanket over my horse and created a bridle from the rawhide rope, calming the creature. "Hurry," he insisted. I worked as swiftly as I could, but still required more moments. I grabbed my paints and a looking glass. Carefully, I painted a blue-black circle around my visage, coloring it with red and yellow. I combed my hair, fastening it with a buckskin thong. Bullets, caps, and my powder horn were the last pieces. "Hurry," my father repeated. So I left my hair unbound and unoiled. I vaulted onto my horse and galloped after the other braves. My brother had already charged ahead. He wore a buckskin shirt decorated with crow hair, but dense dust filled the air, restricting my vision. I followed the multitude of mounted warriors rushing ahead. We advanced through the Oglala camp, where innumerable riders encircled the soldiers, who fired without pause. We replied with a hail of arrows. I rode beside the Sioux, weaving around the soldiers until we blocked their escape route. By then, they had sought shelter in the timber, some with Crow or Shoshone scouts. Most had already run. Our warriors pushed nearer, showering arrows into the woods. Gunfire answered, but we maintained our position. More combatants arrived, enveloping the grove. Fallen soldiers lay strewn in the grass and sage. The remainder would not endure much longer. Some Sioux advanced closely, with torches prepared to ignite the woodland. Then suddenly, the soldiers exploded from concealment on their mounts. I was close to where they broke out. I wheeled my horse around and bolted into a desperate sprint, just like the others. But they were not pursuing us. They were fleeing for their lives, charging across the open prairie toward the river. We stopped only for a moment before chasing them. A surge of Sioux joined the hunt. My location placed me near the lead. Their horses moved slowly, spent. Ours ran like the gale. We narrowed the distance quickly. I discharged 4 rounds. I am uncertain if my shots hit their mark. Nearby, a Sioux plunged an arrow into a soldier's skull. Another sank into his shoulder. He plunged from his horse. More men dropped from arrows, lances, or the Sioux's stone war clubs. Horses fell, injured or slain. Our battle hymns blended with jeers. "Go home, boys. You should have brought more troopers." "Was the rosebud insufficient for you?" Little Bird and I singled out one soldier. He wore a long war bonnet, riding just in front. We flanked him, Little Bird on his right, myself on his left, lashing his horse on its back. It felt dishonorable to shoot him, and I required to conserve bullets. But he turned in his saddle and fired into Little Bird's leg. Infuriated, I smashed my whip's elk antler handle violently against his head. The impact dazed him. I seized the rifle strapped on his back, yanking it loose as he sank to the earth. I abandoned him there, breathing or dead, I cannot tell. The surge of fighters swept me ahead, though now I gripped a soldier's rifle, useless without any rounds. 3 cavalrymen broke from the mayhem, riding back up the valley toward their initial post. Sun Bear, Eagle Tail Feather, and Little Sun, 3 Cheyenne, joined Sioux riders in the chase. This is what they afterward recounted. One soldier turned toward the river and disappeared into the trees. The other 2 raced south. One veered right into a ravine where he was trapped and slain at its brink. The final man sped toward Reno Creek, then turned abruptly, heading back to the woods across from the creek's exit. He dismounted and concealed himself in the brush. Sioux and Cheyenne surrounded him. They said he resisted fiercely, discharging his revolver until it was depleted before perishing. Meanwhile, Crooked Nose, a Cheyenne, and Sioux warriors pursued a war bonnet scout who sided with the soldiers. The pursuit continued on foot through a boggy area, then into the northern forest. After exchanging gunfire and desperate fleeing, the enemy scout was killed. I missed all of this. I was occupied chasing soldiers fleeing into the river. Warriors crowded the riverbanks, clubbing and shooting as troopers struggled in the water. I will never know how many died in that place. I swung my taken rifle like a club, striking 2 soldiers from their horses into the flow. Most warriors halted at the river, but some, myself included, forded across. On the opposite side, Whirlwind, a Cheyenne, faced another war bonnet scout. Above the tumult, a solitary voice roared, "I am not allied with the soldiers. I am all Indian, all Cheyenne." The voice of Little Wolf, one of our 4 honored old chiefs, resounded over the agitated throng. Speaking in our language, which many Sioux could not comprehend, he stood proud among 7 lodges of people who had only recently arrived. Yellow Horse, an elder from the Southern Cheyenne, urged me forward. "You are his relative, and you speak Sioux. Serve as his translator." As we proceeded through the irate crowd, I witnessed even some Cheyennes, like White Bull, enraged about his injured son, noisy walking, accusing Little Wolf of assisting the soldiers. When I questioned him, the chief's eyes flashed with anger. "You foolish boy, would I bring wives and children to help soldiers? Does anyone believe I am a white man's dog?" His chest expanded. "I will fight anyone who claims my heart is not Cheyenne." Little Wolf then recounted how his group had spotted soldiers camped on the upper Rosebud, traveled cautiously in the darkness, discovered abandoned military provisions, witnessed the battle from far-off ridges, and only approached when the gunfire ceased. After I translated his account, the Sioux war chief proclaimed him blameless. Though a few muttered about his belated arrival, The strain lessened when Little Wolf's women handed out precious reservation sugar and coffee to alleviate the stress. That afternoon, our people performed sacred burials. Lame White Man was given honors suited for a chief. I assisted in laying his rigid body in a mountain crevice tenderly. First, preparing a sheltered niche. Second, wrapping his body in blankets and a buffalo hide. Third, sealing the resting place with flat rocks. In both Sioux and Cheyenne camps, sorrow was intense. Mothers and sisters cut their arms in ceremonial lamentation while the charred frames of mourning tents smoldered beneath the night sky. Even the customary campfires were scarce, lit only for sustenance or the solemn burning of the deceased's possessions. While some young men still skirmished with the remaining soldiers cornered across the river, others came back weary from the combat. Old men rode through the villages, their throats raw from singing brave heart songs and calling for fortitude. If you wish to listen to further Native accounts from history's forgotten conflicts, press the like button, subscribe, and notification bell. The voices of the past still possess stories to relate.